Hello, I'm Abigail Edge, the host of this year's Future News Worldwide conference, and I'm here to help you get ready for the third and final day of the conference. In this short session, we'll be looking at how you can pitch stories to editors, come up with ideas, and present them to an audience. On the third day of the conference, you'll take part in an interactive news day. Imagine you're in a team of reporters pitching ideas for climate change coverage to your editor. You'll then work with your team to highlight a current story which merits substantive coverage. Instructions about the news day will be sent to you before the conference opens, but here's a rough outline of what to expect on the day. The first step is to come up with a story idea and decide on the outlet, platform, or audience you wish to target. You should then research some key sources, relevant facts, and data. Not too much at this point, but just enough to flesh out your idea. On the day, liaise with your teammates to select a story on which to focus. This should be a process of constructive negotiation, and I'll be there to help out. You'll then have 1 hour to do any additional research and put together a short pitch. Finally, you'll allocate a member of your team to present the pitch to the editor and the other conference delegates. Now let's hear from some editors about the things they look for in a great pitch. For this, I've called in a few favors from friends and acquaintances. So let's get started with Nathan Hodge, Bureau Chief of CNN Moscow.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nathan Hodge. I'm the Moscow Bureau Chief for CNN, and I'm here to give you a few words about what makes a great pitch. And a great pitch is going to be like this video. It's going to be very brief. Remember that editors, commissioners are generally very busy people. And if you cannot convey what it is that you're trying to get across and what you hope to accomplish with a story, with a television package, with any number of other things that you're hoping to produce, if you can't do it in a very concise way, think of it like a headline or maybe writing the lead or the top of a story. It needs to be that brief. The old phrase is an elevator pitch. It needs to be something that you can convey to someone, in the 15 seconds or less that it takes to take an elevator ride from one floor to another with someone. It needs to be just that brief.
Interesting stuff, right? Now let's look at the key elements of a pitch. You start with the top line. This is your elevator pitch. It hooks you in, sums up your story idea, and acts as a hook for the reader. It is concise and compelling and should come at the start of your pitch. Next comes the nut graph. It's a funny old term, essentially a paragraph that explains, in a nutshell, the point of a story, the what and why we keep reading. Nut graph is a text form, but the principle also applies to the way you tell a video story. It is the second stage of the storytelling process, where you explain what the story is and why a viewer should keep watching. Thirdly, you need to define your get. What makes this story exclusive? And where is the news? You don't have long to hook your editor into your story, so be clear and compelling. Make sure it grabs attention and gives enough information to tell the editor it is a story worth investing in. Think about how you'll report the story. Will you use exclusive interviews, new evidence, documents, visuals? This also belongs in your elevator pitch. Your editor needs to know you have a new, newsworthy angle in your story. Is it a new story or is it already in the news? If it's a completely new story, you need more about the get or what makes it newsworthy. If it's a story that's already in the news, that's fine. But as well as the get, you need more about how your angle on reporting adds depth and context. Formats. Do you have a plan for visuals to accompany your story? Even if you're a radio journalist, your outlet will want to put it on the website and social media channels, so you need to plan video and photos if possible. Travel and timeline. How long will you need to report the story? Do you need to travel, or is there a fellow reporter within the media outlet who is at the location and can help report the story? Budget. It speaks for itself that your editor will want to know the cost of the project that you're proposing. How might you justify any high expenses? Is there any way to cut costs and still maintain the standard of the feature? Access. Are your sources and interviewees exclusive to you? Do you have any security concerns for yourself or your sources? Will you try and work with any reporting partners, such as the World Health Organization? Remember, you don't have to include every single one of those elements in your pitch. After all, on the day, you'll only have an hour to prepare. But your pitch should, at the very least, include the top line, the nut graph, and the get. Those are the three most important. Now, let's hear some more pitching tips from editors. Here's Josephine Schmidt. She's executive editor of The New Humanitarian, which is headquartered in Geneva and covers crises, conflicts, and disasters around the world. She says, what we're really looking for in a great pitch is, why is this story urgent or timely? Why now? What is the time peg or trend that will tell our readers you've got to pick this up now? Secondly, why is this story important to the reader? Why should they care? Why should they invest their time? Thirdly, what's the secret sauce? In other words, what makes your pitch unique? Lola Garcia Ajofrin is editor-in-chief of Outriders. Based in Poland, Outriders does solutions journalism covering migration, borders, climate change, and more. She says, make sure you've researched the story and potential sources before sending a pitch. Get familiar with the publication you want to pitch. What topics do they cover? What's their style? She also advises you to include a catchy title or headline for the story to grab the reader's attention. Now, if you're emailing your pitch, you would put this in the subject line, but in a spoken pitch, as you'll be doing on the news day, you can simply read that to the person you're presenting to. Lastly, Lola recommends that you have a strong hook. What's the other side of the story? What insights can you offer that haven't been told before? Lola Hierro is the section editor of Planeta Futuro, which is a section of the Madrid-based El País newspaper covering global health, development, and inequality. She says, editors are busy. You need to find a way to make them understand the story in very little time. Is the story appropriate for the section you plan to pitch? Sometimes we at Planeta Futuro get very good ideas, but they're not the right fit. Lastly, has the outlet covered the story already? You can check this using a Google site search. So in the top of your web browser, type site : the name of the website that you wish to search, and then the term that you're searching for. I'll let you into a little secret. If we're lucky, Lola will actually be joining us on the day to hear your pitches. Lastly, let's hear from Donald Martin, who's the editor-in-chief of NewsQuest Scotland. The Herald is one of the oldest newspapers in the world, and it covers news, politics, and sport from the UK. He says, a good pitch needs to be clear and concise and be interesting, which is very underrated by freelancers when pitching. The story needs to work for online as well as print. How would you tailor the story for each format? And that also goes for if you're pitching a story for radio, how would you make it work for online and social media as well, for example? Lastly, what extras can you offer? If you have pictures or video to include, say so. I'm sure you're all excited to get started with coming up with some story ideas, but before you do, I wanted to give you some helpful tools and tips that I've used in my own work. Now, all of these are Google tools, and I'll put a link in the description for a few brief lessons that you can find on the Google News Initiative website to find out more. Remember, we're looking for stories about climate change, so I've tried to focus on tools that will help with that. Tool number 1 is Google Earth Timelapse. This allows you to go back in time to see the effects of climate change. Tool number 2 is Global Forest Watch, where you can discover deforestation data and maps. Tool number 3 is Global Fishing Watch, which allows you to monitor global fishing activity by tracking fleets and vessels. Finally, tool number 4 is Google Scholar, which I'm sure some of you will already be familiar with. This allows you to find scientific studies and expert opinions on almost any topic, including climate change. Before we come to the end of this session, I'd like to give you some homework. I know, but I promise you'll find it interesting. BBC Media Action have launched a free MOOC course on how to effectively cover climate change. We'd like you to complete the following 2 modules before day 3 of the conference: producing climate change stories for multi-platform and a solutions approach. I'll put the link for the MOOC in the video description box below. All that's left for me to say now is good luck. I'm really looking forward to meeting you at the conference, and I can't wait to hear your story pitches. Bye for now.